All right. Hey everyone, Rachel Weaver here. I'm on faculty at Regis University's Mile High MFA program. I'm making a series of videos in which we're talking about various options for making a living with a background in writing. So today, Rachel Werner is with us. Thank you so much for being here, Rachel.
Oh, I'm excited.
She is a content creator. So first of all, just tell us a little bit about what you do. What does it mean to be a content creator?
So what it means is that, their content, it means so many different things. It could be written content that's going for a print publication like glossy editorial or newspaper, but it also means pretty much anything and everything you see on the website, right? It's like on any website or social media. So we're talking videos, photography, TikToks, Instagram reels. I feel like the list goes on and on. Copy, obviously, text that goes on websites, the captions are for social media posts. So like I said, it's kind of an array. And then obviously so many publications have totally phased out of print altogether just because of the expense side of it, and now are fully just publications online. So still articles, whether it's restaurant reviews, travel pieces, beauty, those are kind of like fashion occasionally. So those are that I would say a lot of what I write about as far as print and digital publications too.
Mm-hmm. And how did you get started? How did this all come to be?
Okay, so I'm going to try and make this a short story. It's kind of long, but the short and sweet of it is that, so I have lived abroad quite a few times like in my life. And so the most recent time, about a little bit over a decade ago, I was married and my daughter was actually born in Germany. And then I was splitting up from my ex-husband and I came back to the United States. And originally I had gone back and did working in, social work, that kind of thing. But the recession was still happening. And a lot of nonprofits like the one I was working for, there were obviously still budget cuts and less grant funding, et cetera, et cetera. And so a lot of positions were getting defunded or cut to like very, very part-time. And so if anybody has a parent or a family, is a parent or has family and little kids, you realize that I was like, hey, well, if I can't pay for childcare, if I'm not working full time. So at that point, being a single parent back in the United States on my own, I was like, all right, well, then I need to reinvent the wheel once again. So what I had gone and done is because in one of my initial career aspirations when I studied in school, I studied like dance. And I was a dancer for a while. And then I was like, well, I'm going to go get certified to become a fitness instructor. So then I was working in the fitness industry full time, which was great. And, I was a trainer and stuff as well. But I was like, well, we're going to be living in this 1-bedroom apartment for the rest of our lives if I don't find a way to make more money, because I was literally just keeping the lights on. I was not able to make enough money to save and that kind of stuff and get ahead of financial goals. So I was like, what else is in my wheelhouse and my skill set? I was like, well, I've written, I've done writing in regards to other jobs I've had in the past, and I enjoy it. So I just took some classes like people often do, whether you're just going back to school in MFA or studying with a place like Lighthouse Writers Workshop, and taking some classes, just kind of beefing up and learning about what it means to be a freelance writer. And so that's what I did. I did like a continuing ed class through the University of Wisconsin-Madison here where I live. And then I also did a free series about memoir writing through our local library, which is great. And I really credit that class, which was totally free. The woman who runs it, Sarah White, she's big on really encouraging people. Like, if you're serious about writing, you need to be writing every day in some context, even if it's only just 15 minutes a day. And so a part of one of the commitments you make right at the beginning of doing this multi-week series with her is that you have to, even though you don't pay anything, the commitment is that you're going to commit to writing every day while you're in her workshop series. And so, which I did. And like I said, so, even after her workshop was done, I continued to write every day for 18 months. And then that really was a game changer for me, because of a lot of that, as I then actually took that other class through the UW Community Ed, a lot of that writing time was me doing research online, figuring out more about how to do pitches and queries, which I just then started sending things out, to different editors, and eventually 2 different publications here locally gave me a shot to do some travel focused pieces for them. And since I was working in the fitness industry at the time, a lot of the articles that came from that actually had to do with sustainable agriculture too, because food, directly from a health and wellness standpoint, directly ties into the fitness industry as well. And then I started doing some fitness pieces, and I just kind of built my client portfolio from there. And one of the magazines locally that I had started writing for in that initial kind of 2-year period actually eventually hired me to come on staff as an assistant editor. So then I spent 4 years on staff, first as the assistant editor and then eventually digital editor, because I was blessed with just being able to start learning to do our social media, which was not in my wheelhouse at all. So that was trial by fire. So when people say, I don't know anything about social media, and it's like, neither did I, but I had to figure it out real quick. So I spent 4 years on staff at a women's lifestyle magazine. And then that's been the history from there. I mean, from there I started teaching because I did obviously, have to kind of like just practical hands-on speaking, learn all these things from a digital standpoint. And so, and I realized there's a big skill set that a lot of people don't necessarily have or kind of intimidated how to start doing it. So that's how I started teaching too, for first Hugo House in Seattle, then Loft Literary Center in Minneapolis, and then now Lighthouse in Denver too. So I'm really blessed with how the trajectory of my career ended up going in.
And you teach freelance writing, correct?
I do. I teach a lot. Yep. I teach freelance writing. Yep. How to start freelance writing, how to query, pitching your passions. Like, how do you write about the things that you're really passionate about, whether it's your hobby, whether it's what you studied in school. So I actually teach a lot of freelance, and then how to market yourself as a writer. Those are kind of the two things I really teach about most of the time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And are there, this might be a dumb question, but are there content creator jobs like at businesses, or is this always a freelance situation?
There are, I would say, they don't necessarily are called content creators, but anybody who's working in social media, right? Like they're a content creator, and so those are specific jobs that, exist in entities. Within a marketing department, and the lingo for marketing is changing so much in the last 5 years, you know what I mean? But like and I mean, I've heard some stuff where I'm like, I don't even know what that means. Do you know what I mean? Like cloud architect, all kinds of crazy stuff, but like those things where, but those, I would say anything that's in that kind of marketing PR side of things, for sure. I would say, agencies, PR agencies, that is all content creation, branding, that's the new kind of buzz term. So being like a branding specialist, they're a content creator, right? So I would say those are kind of the key terms you're looking for if you're looking for jobs that involve kind of what I'm talking about at a business.
Mm-hmm. And how do you get started? I mean, it sounds like maybe like finding some freelance classes to take to sort of like understand it better. But how do you get started? I mean, it sounds like maybe building up your portfolio is important. But sort of what advice do you have for somebody who's like, man, this sounds cool. What should I do? What is my first step?
So my thing is always figure out first what you want to write about, right? You got to know like kind of what's in your wheelhouse and like you feel. So, and usually what I say is either go with what you're passionate about or what you have the most knowledge base is. And there might be overlap there, but sometimes there isn't, so I tell people, most people are very, very shocked when I tell them, given what I write about a lot of the time now, that I literally built my entire freelance career for the most part. In the beginning, especially photography and videography, that was all focused around like sustainable agriculture. I mean, one of the first videos I ever shot was like of this woman opening up her compost bins with the vermiculture, like the worms, and just talking to me about like composting and, growing the worms to do that. And there was like, what? Like, I mean, you write about beauty or whatever. I'm like, oh, but in the beginning, you know what I mean? Like sustainable agriculture was really just becoming like, it had been on the coast for a while, but then it was really starting to branch out 5 or 6 years ago to the rest of the country. So this idea of this farm to table eating, all that stuff was becoming really hot, in a way that hadn't existed before. And so it's such a specialized niche. And I don't think that people always realize that, like I tell people, like tech, for instance, is a great thing. Tech, people who have a technology background or an interest in technology, whether that's video games, stuff like, and this is not my wheelhouse at all, but like Minecraft and or even like the DOS. There are people who even still play like games where you have to like type in like code and stuff, which totally blows my mind. But anything, or even just from a business technology side of things or finance, those are such niches that like, yeah, you might love writing, but like it's really hard. Not that you couldn't do the research and write a good finance piece, but it's much easier if you already have an interest or a background in that to be able to go to someone like, an editor, or reach out, or a blogging website or I should say a business website that has a blog where they have content. Because always remember that any business that you see and they have a blog on their page, someone's producing that content for them. And a lot of times it's not in-house. It is through freelancers or guest bloggers, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's a situation where I'm like, that, like, those are, you guys are gonna, or science writing is another big one too, or medical writing, so any of those fields, if you have background in them, I would say that it's a great place to get started from a freelancing standpoint, because you already have a knowledge in there. And then if you enjoy writing too, it's a win-win for everybody. And then you can build, and then once you you have a few clips from like reputable sites that kind of, you know, use that as your initial portfolio, then you can start reaching out to other people and broadening your interest, you know. So like, even though, you know, you started writing about, let's say, doing finance, that doesn't mean that after you've done a few really good pieces for some like established sites or magazines or newspapers, that you couldn't like then use those clips to then pitch other, you know, pieces on different topics to other things. Because once, you know, you get like 3 or 4, like, you know, I would say magazines or websites or whatever that people can say, oh yeah, they did a great job, you know what I mean? They're willing to let you write about whatever because they just need the content. You know?
Right. Okay, well, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today.
No, you're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.